Hello and welcome to the Layer 1 podcast. My name is Kelvin Sparks. This is my co-host, Stephen Gates, founder of Haifa. Joining us today, we have Lei Lei, Head of Business Development at Kite AI. Welcome to the show. How are we all doing?
Doing well. Glad to be here again. And welcome, Lei Lei. It's awesome to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me. And it happens to be my birthday today. So it's a great birthday gift to be able to speak to you guys.
Yeah, happy birthday. We'll make sure we make this a good one. But before we begin, Layer 1 is a podcast focused on the intersection of crypto and the real world. And it's brought to you in collaboration with Avalanche. Nothing we say on this podcast is investment advice or financial advice. Make sure to always do your own research. And in today's episode, we'll be talking about on-chain agentic networks with Kite AI. So for background, I'm kind of curious from your perspective, since it's been all over Twitter the past few days. Lei Lei, how do you feel about the influx of crypto bros just discovering Claude Code and Claude Cowork?
No, it's crazy. Basically, Claude launched Cowork and essentially recreated what Meta spent like over $2 billion to acquire Manus. But Claude basically did that natively with launching Cowork. And so for those that haven't used Cowork, basically Cowork allows Claude to access the files on your computer. So it goes through, it reads, edits, and then also executes tasks for you. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. So one of my good friends at Delphi, I was looking at his tweet, which I think went pretty viral. And he basically said that he installed Claude Cowork yesterday, and in 2 hours, basically it created 3 pitch decks for him, responded to like over 40 of his telegrams, basically reviewed like a bunch of tokenomics drafts for projects that they advise tokenomics on, like looked at some of his trading view alerts and told him like some high signal trades to do, and then also negotiated some SEX offers, centralized exchange offers, and got them for free. So pretty crazy. And he basically was like, okay, that would have been 2 months of work for me, and Claude Cowork did it for me in 2 hours. And, he was basically saying like, oh, wow, I panicked for a moment, closed my laptop because, really started to think about like, what is left for me to do? So yeah, I think it's pretty crazy. I myself haven't downloaded it yet, but it's definitely on my to-do list. And just the amount of like productivity that can be really increased on a day-to-day basis using Claude, ChatGPT, all these AI tools is pretty incredible.
I think we were talking on the last pod, Kelvin, with Jason, we're talking about how AI is going to create many small teams that are just as productive and impactful as 50-person teams, 100-person teams. I mean, it's pretty wild to see this play out. As we're talking about Claude Code, I think is the version 0.01. Like, it's still incredibly fresh. And now that that's viral, everyone else is going to come and try and compete. I feel like the on-chain agentic thesis is playing out right in front of us.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I used to use the analogy like when I was vibe coding stuff, and I would just have a minor in computer science, so I can get in trouble with like the real devs and whatnot, but I can also understand what's going on. I used to equivocate it to almost like a 3x improvement. And me, myself, not even having used Claude Code yet, it feels like now we're starting to get into like the 20, 50, 100x's. But while we're on the topic of numbers, Lei Lei, I think it was you and Scott had did some media stuff in the past talking about the growth of AI agents on chain. And can you give some insight into like these 100x year over year growth projections that Scott had alluded to in these interviews with respect to how we're going to use AI agents?
And if I can tack on something to that, maybe hard mode, but if you can tie that into kind of what is the Kite L1 and the Kite thesis?
Yeah, no, great questions. I think basically if you look at it, since the late 1990s, there's been pretty big shifts. So first it was like desktop, moving to desktop, doing everything on your computer or a laptop. And then it was the mobile era where you can basically, have everything on your phone and you do a lot of your day-to-day activities there. And then now the real shift is basically agent-based transactions. So not just like human to agent interactions, but autonomous agent to agent transactions. And so tying that into, why we decided to build an L1 on Avalanche C chain infrastructure, what we really saw was this need with the growth of growth of on-chain agents. There was this big need for the infrastructure side, meaning basically you need like agent native infrastructure because there's two main things that we saw as we spoke with a lot of our enterprise partners that they were really looking to solve for. One is basically guardrails around payments. So payments was kind of a blocker for agents to really grow in the usage. And the second was trust. Is my agent really performing the way I want it to? Does it really have like delegated authority from me? Is it hallucinating? And how can I also have a ton of agent transactions without incurring a huge amount of like transaction fees or gas fees? So that's why we really embarked upon building out an agent native infrastructure based layer one. So, a few things that we're really focused on is like zero fee RPCs. We have, what we call a 3-tier architecture, but basically it gives the user the ability to delegate wallets to agents, and then agents essentially can work within certain bounds, like time bounds, what we call sessions, as well as certain smart contract service guidelines in terms of what it's supposed to do. So that's why, for us, that's really what we're focused on. Also, the team has a very strong infrastructure background, especially with Scott, his time at Uber. Scott's our CTO and co-founder, and also Chi is our CEO co-founder, and she's has spent a lot of time at Databricks as well. So that's for us, that's kind of looking at this 100x growth in terms of what the world is shifting towards, having that native agent-based infrastructure to really be able to speed up that growth is vital.
So it's interesting, again, going back to a lot of the previous media, just because I found it was really, really enjoyable for such a complex topic. The analogy that crypto was money Legos. Why did Kite decide to go to the direction of like AI Legos? Use the analogy of incentivize Hugging Place via your marketplace.
Yeah, that's a good question. So we actually evolved a bit from there. Basically, initially we sought out to build a marketplace of different data providers, models, and agents, and basically incentivize them to basically look for each other in terms of the inputs for building different types of AI agents. But over the course of time, what we really saw is, what I mentioned before, is that with the proliferation of AI agents, there really is this need for an AI native infrastructure. And so that's what we're really very focused on. And we're actually planning to launch mainnet in a few months. And with that, we are working with both Web2 partners as well as Web3 partners. So on the Web2 side, it's basically a lot of people who can help with agent distribution through their merchant network. They're the providers of different agents that different users can use for different everyday tasks. But a lot of the partners who can provide the different trusts and controls. So agent governance, security, agent identity. Also working with different partners that can provide a lot of the agent economic rails. So basically X42 facilitators, payment processors, on-off ramps, also stable coins like USDC, who are also building their own gateway that's integrated with X402 as well.
And you're throwing this term out there, X402. Can you clarify exactly what that is?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, it's basically everywhere. But yeah, and it's basic. It's really just an open payments protocol, which basically allows the internet, helps the internet capable of native payments. So the term, so HTTP 402 is nothing new. It actually existed back in the 90s, but it was never really implemented. So it's dormant. And X42 basically just breathes life back to this. So for example, if you want to like, content from some specific area, but you need to actually, in order to access that content, you need a certain payment. So basically, X42 just gives the opportunity for like a server to respond with saying 402 payment is required. How much do you want? Who's the recipient? And then it can be executed. So it gives instant access through enabling payments on the internet. And there's no like forms you have to fill out. There's no a lot of your like hurdles from the normal human architecture.
I was going to say, okay, now that we've kind of laid that context, I want to talk about unleashing AI agents on chain. And again, going back to Scott's CTO, Scott, your CTO's framing of the question, rather than focusing on agents, what will unleashing AI agents on chain at scale allow humans to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's basically like humans, our everyday tasks, like going to buy groceries, wanting to order Uber Eats. All of these can basically be done by our AI agents. And so with, unleashing a lot of these AI agents, obviously it increases humans' productivity. But in order to unleash that, that we need to basically break through some of these barriers. But I think it's really important to basically abstract away a lot of the complexity. So as a human, I don't really want to like need to understand a lot of that blockchain architecture, which chain I'm settling on, how is this transaction exactly processed? Is it reliable? If there's like uh disputes between what I wanted to transact, what I wanted to execute, and what I wanted to buy versus what actually happened. I want to abstract away all of that complexity. And so I think unleashing agents on chain at scale is really important for humans to have a very easy and smooth process. And so it's up to us in the blockchain industry to basically build for an easy user experience that abstracts away a lot of that complexity on the infrastructure side.
And question from me. So we're talking about the market of putting AI agents on chain, being payment processing for AI agents. So I guess two questions actually. First that comes to mind is why are you building your own L1 to tackle this problem? And two, what approaches do you see of how people are trying to win that market? But more specifically, how are you thinking that you're going to be able to win that market share?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, you know, I mean, there's obviously a lot of different chains out there like Base, Solana, many others that are focused on, agentic payments or stablecoin payments, but most of them are general purpose chains. So they have a ton of other projects building on them in different verticals. And when there is a spike in activity, there's a lot of congestion on the chain. But for the agentic world and agentic payments, basically what you see a lot are microtransactions or micropayments. And the reason is because in many cases, and some of the biggest use cases we see are people are doing research. But they need to pay for some data. And they don't necessarily want to pay in a subscription way or like centralized billing. And they want to pay per call, pay per token. And that's why you see a lot of micropayments. But in order for micropayments to make sense from an economic standpoint, you really need low gas fees. And so if you have a general purpose chain that has, a ton of other, other verticals that they're focused on, and there's suddenly a spike in activity, especially if, let's say, the trading volume is really high that day for specific areas, then you'll see a huge increase in transaction fees. And so it would make agentic transactions and flows not that compatible or realistic. So that's why for us, this is what we've seen, and especially speaking to a lot of our, enterprise and design partners, micro payments is really important, and that's why as a core feature of our infrastructure, so there's certain features that we're really focused on for different partners and projects to build on. No fee RPC is a key part.
That's interesting. And I also know, just because I know you and, we've been talking for a while, that there's also a novel crypto economic incentive framework as well that's laid on top of all of this. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because to me, it seems like, yes, siloed operations is one thing, having your own environment for payment processing, but then it seems like there's also this crypto economics incentive layer that sits on top.
Yeah, some of those I think we're working through the details, but essentially, what we want to do is build a network of validators and delegators, those that are basically contributing to security and consensus, but also meet certain KPIs that help build the ecosystem. So in terms of contributing on the product side, contributing to the network, those are the ways that we are tying in the ecosystem to our token utility framework as well.
And do we know enough yet? I'm thinking through who would be a validator, who would be a delegator. Is it a payment processing partner that would contribute to the network, and then they have an extra incentive with the Kite token to contribute to the network? Or is it an AI agent itself that's using the network to facilitate payments?
Yeah. I think it could be many, but the way that we're thinking about it are basically a few categories. Agent distribution partners, those that can provide a huge distribution for the increase in the number of agents. So those that especially have like a merchant or retail network. Others more on the kind of like infrastructure tooling side. So those that provide security, those that help with governance, those that provide economics rails. So I think there are many different categories, and each will have different KPIs to meet in order to basically contribute to the network. In addition to a lot of those like customized KPIs, it's also, they have the ability to basically stake to the network to contribute to consensus as well and receive additional staking rewards.
Makes sense.
One of the things I thought was really cool, we alluded to throughout the conversation, was building your own Avalanche L1 was the fact you had access to very high scalability, very quick finality, and EVM compatibility. I guess for somebody who wants to build on top of Kite, I guess how to put it, why is it important to manage your own infrastructure as like a builder?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is, one of it is basically they want to build on a chain that can be economically viable. And so I still go back to kind of like the zero fee RPC, especially for agentic builders, is really, really important. And in a lot of our interviews with, speaking with different builders at various hackathons and whatnot, this is really quite important. And I think having a lot of the base architecture for them done helps them, so they don't need to work on that. So what we've launched is called a Kite Passport, and we call it Passport because it basically not just provides the ID, but also helps give the intent. Okay, so like understanding what is your intent with this agent, providing a lot of that verifiability and audibility on chain as well. So these are a lot of the base infra that's really important for agent builders in this space. So they don't have to worry about some of those basic things, and they can focus on the specific agent that they want to build for their clients.
As you have more of these AI agents coming online, and you have these virtuous cycles and network effects, ideally, what's the end benefit to the user?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, there's swarms. That's a growing topic with basically agents also delegating different activities to other agents and coordinating with different agents. It's really just about, to me, it's like productivity. If I can basically open up my computer and say, okay, today these are like in my normal world, I have a calendar at 8 o'clock. I need to like sign on and talk to Kelvin and Steven. At 10 o'clock, I need to do like other calls or like various tasks. At 3 o'clock, I have to go pick up my kids, whatnot. If I have different agents or even teams of agents basically handling this all for me. And basically, doing it in a way that has like very, very high accuracy. And I don't have to work on a lot of this, then it basically frees me up to do higher order activity. And you'll see a huge amount of, improvements in productivity, as well as like the knowledge gap also, really helps. So if you need to do a presentation or if you need to do a talk, just like now, or other things. Basically, you just ask a few questions and boom, your presentation's done for you. Especially like, the different graphics. That always I spend a lot of time on like trying to make it look pretty, but it does a lot of the design for you. So I think it's incredibly exciting. I mean, in talking to different like web 2 companies from like payments networks, they're very most actually I just came from a meeting with one of the major payment networks out there. I mean, they all have a team looking at the space and trying to figure out, like, many of them are worried that there is existing way of doing business is going to be replaced if they don't really study this, if they don't have a team looking at how do I get into the flow of this. How does my like existing payment system not become obsolete. And then especially a lot of the retail e-commerce companies actively looking at, okay, how can this increase the volume of my commerce transactions and revenue from my existing users, as well as how can I direct users from like OpenAI, Claude, Perplexity, who are like every day writing down their intent and typing down, what they're thinking and what they're doing. How can I direct that flow to like, a Shopify or like my company and my existing merchants, and how do I basically monetize that? So I don't think there's a single company that, at least we've been speaking with, that isn't actively looking at this, and they all have a team that's trying to figure out what to do. So, I think the exciting thing is, it's like really found the right intersection, at least one of the right intersections for the use of blockchain technology for the regular world AI, layering on AI agents as well. But it's new, it's nascent, and people are still figuring it out. But as you see with the whole space, things grow so quickly. X402 is not. I mean, obviously, it's a revival of a dormant, HTTP 402 from the late 90s. But even last year, you saw that the growth really skyrocketed after like various standards came out. The amount of transactions, with like X402 facilitators really increased. And you just saw a lot of different companies really embracing and looking into what does this mean for me?
Yeah. And really quickly, sorry, I do want to ask this one question before I hand it off to Steven, because you mentioned swarms, and I want to get a little bit of a spicy take maybe from your perspective. Are there any emergent properties you expect will
Yeah.
come from AI as these swarms work together?
Yeah. That's a great question. I guess the way I think about it is probably there's greater need for making sure there's no bad behavior. Because it's one thing to basically see, okay, how can make sure my one agent is behaving, isn't going rogue or isn't hallucinating. Now I have a whole swarm. It's a whole colony of AI agents. How can I make sure it doesn't completely take over and go, like completely go off the rails? And how can I trust that not just like I'm delegating to my agent to do one thing for me, but my agent's delegating to 10 other agents to do like 20 other things for me. Like how does that all like work in a reasonable way? Yeah, I think Steven wanted to say something.
Well, just building on top of that briefly, it definitely seems like having high standards of accuracy and setting, strict guidelines or safety bounds. Because if a swarm gets out of hand, or if one agent starts miscommunicating to the other agents, it seems like it could create some hilariously bad results. And these aren't swarms, but at least for Claude Code, kind of the people that I'm talking to, like I'm seeing them give the agent, SSH access, root access to their laptop, so that the agent can control any action on the laptop. And then there's somebody found out that some files getting exfiltrated or being uploaded to Claude Code, the cloud that's being run on Claude Code. So now your files are on Claude Code, and this agent has root access, and we're not sure yet what the bounds are, or like mistakes can easily happen with these agents. So maybe the wrong thing gets uploaded. So if that's just one agent and I have a swarm of agents, definitely seems like that could be some mission critical failures could pop up there. Is that something that you think that having your own L1 can help guide, or is it more so or is the blockchain side of this more so about facilitating payments? Because my original question was going to be, when you talk to all these institutions, the different players and developers, like how crypto native are they? How much is blockchain just a backend or a database that they can now tap into that's got different properties, versus it's like, we're here for the crypto native side and we want to, launch tokens and, do shenanigans.
I would say most of the ones that are like much more advanced have their own blockchain team. But in terms of crypto native, I mean, I don't think, it's not like, okay, how can I launch my own token? How can I grow a DeFi ecosystem? But they are really looking at it more from, okay, how does the blockchain technology really help me with what I need? Like the on-chain traceability, verification, I can track wallet-to-wallet interactions. I can really see some of the things that are more difficult through traditional infrastructure. So I think in terms of, it's a little bit different from like you're a person looking at like a DeFi or how can I build a trading agent. There's different types of kind of the Web2 users and power players versus like a lot of Web3 native projects who are more focused on like, okay, how can I take my existing DEX or my existing perp DEX and build an AI agent that automates trading or finds me the best price, finds me like lower slippage, finds me the best on-chain yield, all of that.
Well, it sounds like on that, the way the AI agent, the end user is seeking productivity gains, and it just so happens that their work is, using a perp dex and trying to make money off of trading on it. So then the AI agent is helping them or assisting them kind of achieve that. But it's not so much that I guess the AI agent is plugging into the blockchain as a new kind of data set or a new API that then you customize the AI agent for. So even so, it seems like there are two layers to this. The first is, or the primary goal is to improve the productivity of a human. And then an AI agent is a way to automate human actions. And then the blockchain is just an API that they can either consume or be built on top of to like you said, like have different properties like traceability.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary.
It's interesting because I was curious about how the blockchain impacts like the cost of inference for that matter, but it seems like that's really not as important in this respect. No.
Yeah, I think it lowers the cost of inference. So, I mean, in kind of the traditional world, it's a lot of like subscription based, or like monthly fees. And here, the blockchain allows you to basically pay for specific actions or pay for specific access. So, that's why I think it's like cost per API or cost per call or cost per token, which can lower cost of inference overall.
So I guess to change gears a little bit and bring it back into X4.2, there was some cool stuff I was finding when just preparing for the episode from late 2025. And people were saying X4.2 did around 600 million in annualized payment volumes for the year. So are there any catalysts for acceleration in 2026?
I would say that various standards coming out. A few things. One is greater cross-chain transactions. So there's a lot of like different facilitators gaining traction. There's a lot of multi-chain expansion, so that increases the overall traction and expansion. I think there's also the enterprise AI integration wave. So enterprise companies with like huge distributions and numbers of users are actively involved, and so you'll see a spike in payment volume. And then there's also the ERC 8004, which is basically a trust framework that's launching. So with X402 and ERC 8004 added together, I think you'll really see a huge increase in autonomous agent economies, which basically increases the amount of pavement volume that we'll see.
I guess to that note, kind of since we've been talking so much about AI agents, I'm curious to now talk about almost like the human capital and community aspect of things. I guess, how does Kite think about human capital in a world where AI is becoming increasingly important in our daily lives?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of like a friend and foe in a way. So that my agent can do so many things for me, and I can become an instant expert in what I need to do, what I need to know in a short period of time. And but as you see in like human evolution, there was always these different periods, from like hunting gathering to the farmer, like hunting gathering to like farmer era to industrial revolution to kind of like internet, social media, and now it's the AI cycle. And each time you see like humans evolving higher, and the tasks that are like the my day to day. I change like what I spend my time on. And I think you'll increasingly see things like creativity, curiosity, emotions still are very important. And those are all the things that, AI can mimic, but I'm very cautiously optimistic that humans will continue to be, the evolve into a higher state.
Oh man, I was just soaking that in. That was like really, really cool. No, I guess from my perspective, the way I think about it is, I kind of tend to think is like consciousness a computation, and I don't really know all the ins and outs of how all these LLMs work and not, but at least right now, there are things that humans are very good at that AI is not, and vice versa. So it almost seems like the whole topic of like the singularity, like we're moving in that direction. Whether that remains to be true or not, I have no clue. But maybe these things are some kind of new, like silicon-based life form to get super like Star Trekky kind of thing. So I just wake up every day and hope we're not building Skynet. But maybe I'll have some cool like I don't know, software, robotic, futuristic type of friends in the future. So I just try to put my best foot forward and hope we're not building something super crazy. Curious what you think, Steven.
I have a slightly more optimistic, maybe pragmatic take. I definitely have had this conversation a lot, right? And it's a very present topic on people's mind. And I think that's an extremely bullish thing. One thing that strikes me from our conversation with Scaramucci, my co-founders' experiences, kind of the founders of Ava Labs, their experiences, is that it's really striking how much conversation shapes an industry. Where my co-founder likes to tell a story of how in 1998 the government was looking to ban HTTPS. Because they thought like, okay, HTTP, that's good. HTTPS, okay, we're opening up, new ways for terrorism to happen or for fraud to happen because now you can have encrypted messaging. It's like, every engineer in the world that knew this stuff was like, no, that's stupid, right? Like, no, you really want to have a basic encryption for as you use the internet, because if you don't, there's going to be so much more fraud and abuse. But the government was really like trying to ban it. And just through conversation, through like 2 years in the trenches, it ended up that kind of people, Silicon Valley built their way out of HTTPS getting banned. So they adopted it faster than the government could kind of catch up to it. And that's how the conversation won out. And it also reminds me, shades of that analogy remind me very much of today in crypto. When we think of, you see the Genius Act and see how much easier it might be for the government to, track, or even the big banks to track every single transaction that happens. And then at the same time, we see things like Zcash, right? See that side of the conversation happening. And then everyone is kind of duking it out. So right now it's 50-50 on that topic. But then now finally bring it back home. When we talk about the convergence of AI and humans, as long as it remains a very present topic on everyone's minds, I remain very bullish, because as long as we're in the driver's seat and people can talk through it and decide like, okay, what do we value? Do we want Neuralink to be only for people who have broken spinal cords? Or do you also want Neuralink implants to be available for, high school teenagers who go to affluent neighborhood or live in affluent neighborhoods who are trying to become football superstars, right? And like maybe Neuralink helps them, be a better quarterback or something. So it's all very, very tricky. And then as soon as you talk about Neuralink, it's like that's definitely going to be the red pill for AI just getting injected into everybody. Like, okay, now there's a piece of software inside your brain that can create inference requests from some sort of cloud. Like there it gets pretty wacky. You can, plenty of sci-fi books are created around that. But
oh yeah, we could have a whole probably conversation on that alone.
Yeah,
yeah. One of the
Seems
things I was
like the
curious
next podcast topic.
Oh my gosh, it'll be after hours. After
yeah, we got to
hours,
stream that
yeah.
one. I don't know if that's good for
Yes,
a
it's happy hour conversation.
But I'm curious to bring it back to like human relationships and whatnot. You guys work with some really, really big names like Ava Labs, I assume as well, like the Avalanche Foundation, Coinbase Ventures, and PayPal Ventures. For someone who is building their own AI startup, whether they're bootstrapping it with their own money or they raise some money, can you give some insights into what these conversations are like and some of maybe the phases of growth of Kite to get to this point?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we feel very privileged to have, some of these like major, mega giants from like Avalanche to Coinbase to PayPal. And I think each of them are very important to us in different ways. And they're all excited about the AI story, about the intersection of AI and blockchain. But I think building these relationships, you typically see the announcement come out, but obviously behind the scenes, it took a long time to build up those relationships. So with JK at Coinbase Ventures, who is our investor, actually the founders Chi and Scott have known him for quite a few years, and I think he actually wanted to invest early on, and there was like some different iterations in kind of like the roadmap. But anyways, I think for builders, one of the key lessons is start building a relationship early on. Same thing with PayPal Ventures. Our lead investor, Alan, has been a longtime supporter. And he's very involved, not only on the investment side, but really he loves product, and he spends a lot of like weekends with us, like in his house, like basically, drawing out what does this product look like? How do we work with the different teams at PayPal? And same, I would say, with Avalanche, John Nahas, the whole BD team, Steven, and many other people in the ecosystem have been huge supporters, and we want to continue to give back and be very active. So yeah, I think, it still comes back to a human game, which I think is a bull case for us humans, building that relationship with each other. Having the in-person meeting and developing kind of like those synergies from early on is really important.
And I think you're absolutely correct. If I can make any CTA to people, like everyone looks at, okay, this person raised $20 million, this person raised $10 million. How did that happen? How are they able to close JP Morgan? I think you're right. It really comes down to being in the arena early and often with whatever resourcing you have, just always making the next marginal best step. Right. And I do also have to say, as we start closing things out is that you guys are probably the most hardworking team that I've met in crypto. And I mean that with no cap. Like for real. Not just
thank you.
glazing.
I'm working on my birthday, so yes.
I know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. What made me think of that is when you said that you're meeting the Coinbase guy on weekends. And I was like, yep, that's totally fucking on brand. I think I've had calls with you guys for my like midnight. I remember talking to some of your team members. But so as speaking of working so hard, it's a human game. We're in the arena. So what is around the corner for you guys? What can we focus on? I know TGE happened, an early TGE happened in October. Great market timing, by the way. I think it was like October 12th, right after the largest liquidation event in crypto. So that must have been fucking wild to kind of go through that process. But
yes, yeah. End of last year was wild. We actually launched a little right behind that in early November, and I think markets had stabilized. Okay. So yeah, we feel very lucky. I think market timing is always something that you can't predict, but I think it was good timing. But yeah, in terms of what's next, so we are very focused on launching our mainnet. Actually, private mainnet is already up, but we want to make the mainnet very successful, and so we're working with kind of a lot of different ecosystem partners, working on kind of the next phase of our token, kind of like token ecosystem utility as well. So a lot to come. In a couple months, you'll see it all go live.
I guess, Stephen, was there anything else you wanted to ask? Or Lei Lei, anything else you wanted to talk about? We could probably tee something up as we have like maybe 5 minutes left.
I guess, yeah. What's kind of like, what do you guys see for this upcoming year for the block or, in the AI space?
I'll say within the AI space, because it's something I'm super bullish on as somebody who I was talking to Stephen about, these like algorithmic trading strategies. Let me build a quick machine learning pipeline, but now I actually want to execute that. It's very hard for me to go from a spreadsheet that I back tested towards actual execution, because that's just, it's the last mile of the equation, but it's difficult to import the private key into this notebook to then say, okay, you should fire on this signal, you should fire on that. Here's how you actually learn and iterate on it. I think that a lot of people are going to say, here, I almost like a robo-advisor in a sense. Fidelity's had these things for ages, but if I'm saying, hey, I could give this to an agent that's going to get smarter as more and more agents communicate with it, I'll be able to navigate volatility better. I'll be able to maybe capture spreads that I wouldn't be quick enough to do as a human given my reaction time, or maybe because I'm sleeping. So I find that financial use case personally very, very interesting. And I think the next wave of, we'll say, retail users or non-institutional capital is probably going to come from these AI agents transacting on chain rather than traditional retail users coming back in because their friend bought the next Lambo coin, for example. So, yeah.
Yeah, on my side, I'm actually extremely bullish on Claude Code. Has been such a no-brainer. I have 5 windows open, and it's like they're all messaging apps. I've got Slack, Signal, Telegram 1, Telegram 2, and email. And it's always been, for me, it's always been a pet hackathon project to mess around with agents on, can they just control my computer? Can they just simulate myself? And to the earliest story that you brought up about the Delphi Ventures guy, I think we're going to see more and more of that, a lot more of that. Now that Claude Code has kind of broken things open, and now there's little easy primitives for developers to mess around with. That's what I'm the most interested in on the AI space. Probably talking to my own book, because messaging people and talking to humans, I mean, that's 95% of my job.
Yeah. So have you had the same experience where you basically have Claude Cowork respond to people and
I am tactfully waiting. I'm tactfully waiting for the next version to come out, because I mean, they released it really, really early. If you're looking at some of the early threads about Claude Cowork, even the team was like, yeah, this is basically an alpha. We don't know what's going to go wrong. We don't know what's going to go well, but we're going to iterate quickly and we want to release it in public, which is cool. But I'm not that quite much, I'm not that quite an enthusiast. I've got the stakes are a little higher for me to like just experiment with it at this early stage. But I definitely use AI through my workflow. That's probably like my 6th window open, actually, is I use Gemini now. But I use AI really heavily in my workflow. Not so much to just like if you send a message to me in Telegram, not so much just to like instantly respond with a draft produced by AI, but more for context switching and, here's what I naturally want to tell this person, but they're this person. And in this situation, we're negotiating this with these terms. And here's the incentives that they said they had. So kind of like reframe my message, more like drafting, I suppose, or revising.
Yeah. It's mind-boggling, right? Basically.
It is.
It really is.
Especially on my most recent brain blast has been we're evaluating launching a new product, my co-founder. And in one afternoon, we probably got 2 weeks worth of work done in terms of product research, product design, pricing plans, security concerns, an implementation plan, and creating a risk engine, right? Like looking at what all the risk parameters are that are being used in crypto for this specific trade. So it's pretty wild. If anything, I think the biggest loser out of all this is probably the new interns, all the new grads.
Yes.
If you're if you're 22 years old coming out of college with a marketing degree, it's like, yo, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going to happen to you.
Well, it actually may drive down the age of entrepreneurship in a way. If you're like, hey, I could do this in high school and all you do is pay for a Chat GPT subscription. If I have people who are willing to buy whatever I'm selling, whether it be family or friends, I think it forces you to get started earlier in a weird way. But
That's
yes,
right.
it is super bearish if you don't have exposure to these tools.
But it's like the new upcoming generation, I would agree, for them, like the Gen Z TikTok doom scrollers, brain rotters. But for everyone that's currently 22, who's graduating this semester, this spring semester, you got to really
what are they doing?
I got to reference the meme. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was to say, you could just stay home and day trade. And
I was going to reference the meme. Sorry, better start vibe coding, buddy. I just had to add that. My bad. But sorry, Lei Lei, you were saying.
No, that's it. Yeah.
Unfortunately, this has been a lovely conversation, but we do have to cut it at some point to be mindful of Lei Lei and Steven's time. So I want to thank Lei Lei for joining us on this episode. And as a reminder, our newsroom works tirelessly to get you accurate, informed crypto news. If you want to stay ahead, read the block. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for listening at home, and see you next time.